A story that I like to share is about a man named Tony. When the Chinese people go to Australia, they give themselves an English name. And so this guy's name that he'd given himself was Tony. And we met Tony my first or second week in my first area. And when we first met him, he was shy and he didn't look at us when he met with us. And he kind of just kept his head down. And when we asked him to pray at the end of the lesson, he just repeated everything that we'd taught him. And this went on for about 3 weeks, and then he agreed to be baptized. And we taught him about the word of wisdom, and he struggled with it a lot. And he struggled with it so much that he went through 4 baptismal interviews. And he would be perfect until the night before his baptismal interview, and then he would drink coffee or tea or have a little bit of alcohol with his friends. And I had been in the area 6 months, and it was coming up for his 5th baptismal interview. He had started to read the Book of Mormon more in depth, and he knew that the church was true. He came to church every week, and he knew that it was true, but he just struggled with this one thing. And so as we worked with him to conquer it, he really began to change. And then the week before I got transferred, he passed his baptismal interview. And then the next week, when I was in my new area, he got baptized. And he was just a great example to me of persevering through our doubts, because he didn't know this one part of the gospel, if it was applicable to his life or not. But he kept doing all the other things that he was supposed to do. And so Tony is near and dear in my heart because I worked with him for so long. And he came through, and he celebrated his year mark the other week, and he's still going strong in the gospel, and so he's just a really good friend of mine. So I was in a threesome, and it was in my first area, and we had a goal that week to just use every minute with the most power that we could. And so we went out. In Australia, it gets dark at about 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and it's not necessarily always productive to go out after it's dark. So we try to have lessons or dinner or whatever. But we didn't have any lessons or dinner appointments that night, so we went out to this bus stop, and we had 10 minutes before it was time to go home. And so I walked up to the bus stop, and I talked to the very first person. His name was Chow Fan. He had just gotten to Australia, so he hadn't had an English name given to him yet. And I said, "How are you today?" And he said, "I'm good." And I said, "It's pretty late at night. You headed home?" He's like, "Yes." I was like, "Oh, that's good. Have you seen missionaries before?" He said, "Yes." He's like, "Are you going to ask me to join your church?" And I was like, "Oh, well, not right away." He's like, "Oh, because I want to join." And Chow Fan his car had broken down the week before. And he had seen missionaries as he'd driven by this bus stop. And he had wondered what we were all about. And he wanted to talk to us, but he was always in his car. And so he knew that if he was going to take the bus instead of be driving for this 2 weeks that his car was in the shop, that he was hoping for a chance to talk to one of us. And it was his last night without a car. And I was the first missionary that approached him. And so it was just like a huge blessing to be able to be a part of his conversion to the gospel in that manner.